Hi guys, Russell here from homebrewrepublic.co.nz. How you going? We have a different video today. Stay tuned because we're going to be having a little bit of a chat with Brendon from BlackRock Brewing. 4 weeks ago, BlackRock Brewing released a new product to the New Zealand market. These guys right here. They've called them Brew in a Bag. Right now they come in 4 styles. We've got an IPA, a golden ale, a pale ale and a lager. They're a first in terms of the consumer market for BlackRock Brewing, and they're definitely new to the market, at least in recent times, for the New Zealand market. I've been watching the initial reviews that brewers have been posting about these kits in forums, and so far they're all positive, but they are a bit different from the standard extract brewing kits that we're familiar with. So what I wanted to do today was talk through what a brew in a bag is, how they're different from extract brewing kits, and the benefits that they're going to offer home brewers in the home brewing environment. To help with this conversation, I wanted to introduce Brendon from BlackRock Brewing. He knows a lot more about the brew in the bags from me and has been part of the journey of bringing them to market. We did talk about the brew in the bags, but we also talked about extract brewing in general. We talked about the BlackRock brand, and we just talked about home brewing. It's a great conversation, and I hope everyone can take something from it. There's one thing I want to give you guys a heads up on and say sorry about in advance. The quality of the video in the next segment isn't particularly up to scratch. What I think happened is when we were recording the video conversation, it hasn't converted in HD. I'm really sorry, but I hope you find the value in the content and the value in the conversation because it was really, really good banter. Brendon, good to see you and thanks again for joining us.
No worries, good to see you too, Russ.
Nice. Hey mate, you've been at BlackRock for a good number of years, so I wanted to kick off with an impromptu question about the thing that you like most about the BlackRock brand.
Well, I think the biggest thing for me about BlackRock is I know what goes into it. I know it's all natural raw ingredients that are actually used for brewing. It's produced at a brewery, so we produce all our products at Speight's Brewery in Dunedin, the iconic Speight's Brewery that's been around since the 1876, I think it was. And it's about half of the production of everything that we produce at Speight's Brewery. As part of that, we do the Malteso food product. We do quite a number of homebrew brands for our own brands as well as for co-pack customers. And for me, before I started here, I kind of assumed that the homebrew kits were kind of something that was made in a factory somewhere and wasn't really the raw ingredients that you would expect to be using if you were making a beer from scratch. But that is exactly what it is. We make all our beer in our multi-extract from grain. And it follows process through a $10 million Crohn's brew house, where it can be monitored at every step along the way. And then we just gently remove varying amounts of water from it in order to be able to ship it around to commercial brewing customers as well as home brewers to make it easier for them to just re-add water and ferment it as we would at the brewery.
Nice. So there's a couple of key things in there. The first thing I picked up is that everything BlackRock makes is New Zealand made. And the second thing that I picked up is that the same products that are going into commercial breweries is what you are repackaging and selling to the consumer market as well. So we're essentially brewing with commercial grade or commercial quality ingredients in the homebrew kits, right?
Exactly.
Nice. For today, though, what we wanted to talk about was the new line of kits that BlackRock has released. And obviously, we've got the Brew in the Bag kits, we've got the 4 styles to start off with, but they're quite different from extract brewing kits. So what I was hoping was you could talk us through what the Brew in a Bag kits are and how they're different from the extract brewing kits.
Okay, so essentially, so your normal cans that you purchase from the homebrew shop are exactly the same thing with about 80, which is what we call 80 bricks wet. So essentially, we remove 80% of the water. Anyone that's used them before, you note that you normally have to heat them and normally you would have to add something else to them. So you buy our base kit. For example, I've got an IPA one right here. Generally, what you'd need to use with that would be some sugar, some dextrose, some dry malt extract, or one of these cans here, which is an ultralight or a light, or one of our unhop kits to make up a 23-litre brew. What we've developed with these new kits is basically everything's all in one, so you don't need to purchase anything else, except for potentially hops if you're into dry hopping for a craft aroma. And we've just left a little bit more water in it, enough so that you're not going to need to heat it to be able to make your brew. So essentially in here we have, this is a pale ale kit, and here we have 4.37 kilograms of extract, which is enough to make your 23-litre brew. As you can see from the way that I'm moving it around in the bag, it's very easy to pour and use. So essentially all you have to do is take off the cap, take off the seal and empty it into your fermenter, and then top it up with water to your brew temperature and add your yeast.
Do you classify these as a fresh water kit?
I guess you probably could call it a fresh work kit. It is essentially work. We've just removed some of the water out of it for us to be able to ship it around. The downside to fresh work is that it doesn't ship as well, and it's very expensive to ship. So if you're able to remove some of the water post brew house, makes it much easier and cheaper for the end consumer to get it from our brewery.
So the main difference I've kind of picked up so far is that if we're dealing with the extract can kits, they've had a lot more of the water content evaporated out of them, which has taken some of the compounds that will be within the wort, for example, the sugars, out with it. So the main difference here is there's been less water evaporated. Is that kind of the correct kind of understanding?
Yeah, there's nothing else removed from it other than water. So even with the canned product, it's still all of the good stuff's in there, all the sugars, all the malt flavors and everything. It's literally just water that's been taken out. So and we're not talking a lot of water that's been added back into these bag and box kits. It's only about another 10% worth of water, just enough to make it easier to be able to pour and use straight from the bag without having to heat it.
So the main benefit we've got is there's no heating and no additional ingredients required. Do you expect people are going to get a better brew using the brew in a bag kits, or would we expect kind of a similar result, whether it's a brew in a bag or one of the extract can kits?
I think there's a better chance, especially for the first time home brewer, to make a really good brew from one of our bag and box kits. Reason for that is around there's less manual handling, less cans to open, less opportunities for the brewer to potentially come into some contamination issues with opening and closing different containers, adding raw sugar, which potentially could have something on or in the bag, or the biggest thing about brewing is cleanliness. So if you've taken the time to really well clean all of your equipment and sterilize your fermenter and all those sorts of things, then you've got to think that everything that you then add into that fermenter has a potential for some kind of micro contamination. So if you're opening 3 or 4 different packages or cans, or like each one of those, and unless you're really careful, each one of those offers up another opportunity to add some kind of micro contamination. So a single bag that has all of the ingredients that you need, that you just need to open and pour in, essentially cuts down that risk.
Nice, certainly agree with that. And I think the other benefit that comes with it, if I look at kit brewing in general, one of the things I've always loved is it's incredibly time effective. And I generally say to people, when you're using the extract brewing kits that you can expect 30 to 40 minutes to set a brew up. I've seen some of the comments coming through online about these kits already, with people making jokes about cleaning the gear took longer to set the brew up. And basically it seems like a sort of a 5-minute process now to take the brew in the bag, get it set up and get your brew on. You're basically adding the brew in the bag, adding water, and then pitching your yeast.
Yep, exactly. And I think you could do it, and I think we did a video of it in 2 minutes 45. That was with me talking all the way through it. I think comfortably you could probably get it all done within probably 2 minutes.
Nice. Is this the first time the brew in the bag has been on the market in New Zealand? And what was the impetus, or what was the reason you wanted to bring the product to market in New Zealand?
This is the first time that it has been released by BlackRock in this country. I'm unaware of many other ones around the world, but we came up with this concept back in 2018 when we went to Asia and we visited some of our bulk customers who are producing commercial quantities of beer from our product. So part of our business is not only the homebrew market, but it's also the commercial brewing market. And we have one customer in Singapore who is producing about 50,000 litres a month from our BlackRock 1.7 kg cans, and selling them all over Singapore to some of the biggest and most prestigious venues around Singapore, for the likes of Marina Bay Sands and Sentosa Golf Course. So we were going around visiting these customers and drinking beers, paying 25 New Zealand dollars for a stubby of beer that was essentially made from our BlackRock homebrew kits. And similarly, when we went on to China and looked at some of the brew on site venues over there that weren't necessarily using our BlackRock can kits, but they were using metal pails, 28 kg pails, and having all sorts of issues trying to heat them and lift them up to the top of the fermenters to be able to pour them in, and then once getting them in, having issues around mixing them. So we came back to New Zealand after that visit, and we decided that we'd try and find an easier and better way for that. And what we came up with was a big bag in a box. So I have one of these here. This is 20 kilos of wort, and that makes 100 litres of IPA. So essentially what these customers do is they use it like a big post mix bag. They suck it into the fermenter and top it up with water, and as I said before, around all the micro stability issues that potentially come with 80 brix wort, they're able to pretty much have a hands-off approach to making up their brews, and as a result, they've had better quality, better sales, and a much more streamlined process as a result. So once we developed that, we thought, well, how do we deliver this to the homebrew market? And through a bit of development and sourcing smaller bags and smaller boxes, we've managed to carry those work streams through to now what we're releasing in the market in New Zealand for the homebrew market.
I think that's a really cool story, and there was something right at the start of that grabbed me. So what I think I heard you say was that you had a commercial brewery who was using the BlackRock extract tins, so the same tins we're using, and making 50,000 litres of beer a month. And I did the math while you were talking. That's 2,000 kits a month that these guys were using to produce beer. That's awesome. I think that actually sounds like a real Kiwi thing to do, to be honest. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That's a real nice question. One of the other things I thought I would come back to is I've heard you talk a couple of times about heating the extract tins up, and the main reason I've always known to do this is that it softens the malt, so it makes it easier to transfer from the tin and into your fermenter. But are there any other reasons that we would be thinking about as brewers that we would want to heat that malt up before we use it?
Uh, the main reason is just to get it out of the can. Depending on whether you want to do a partial mash brew or something like that, you may want to heat your whole brew up once you've made it to if you want to add extra bittering hops to isomerize the hops and get extra bitterness out of it, or if you want to do whirlpool hopping or some partial mashing where you're adding extra grains to it. But ultimately, as long as everything else that you are adding to your clean fermenter is clean, i.e. your water and anything else that's coming in contact with your brew, then you don't really have a need to heat the extract prior to brewing.
Nice. These kits, they only got launched on the market, I think maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago now. And I know there's a bunch of brewers out there who have got their brews down, but I doubt there's anyone who's really had a chance to try it, based on allowing it to ferment and then start to bottle mature. So given that you guys, I'm sure, tested these to the nth degree before you released them, I'm going to assume that you've tried these brews. So I guess my question would be, which one is your favorite and why?
I actually really like the lager. We also use all of these wort strains for beer festivals. So we have our own microbrewery here at Spates that we produce beers that we sell at beer festivals. So the favorite one for me is actually the lager, which is dry hopped with about 5 grams per liter of Brewing hops, and that's a real favorite of mine. And saying that, though, we've made some fantastic pale ales with the pale ale wort. You have the ability to produce your own New Zealand pale ale or Australian pale ale or American pale ale based on whatever dry hops you want to add to it. So, like for example, an APA, any of the West Coast hop varieties, your Citra Mosaic, your Simcoe, Strata, all those sorts of hops can make some really nice APAs just by dry hopping the pale ale base. The golden ale one is actually really good. Also, if you can get your hands on some Galaxy hops, I know they're pretty hard to get in New Zealand often, but that can make you a really nice summer ale style. But all of them really, there's still the opportunity to put your own spin on. We're giving you a world-class wort to be able to brew, and it's up to you to really choose what you want to hop it with to get the best out of that base to make the brew that tailors to your taste.
We talked about dry hopping, and I do know that that's kind of listed as optional. If you had to recommend on any of the kits overall, whether to dry hop or not to dry hop, which way would you go on that?
Well, again, I think that's all really determined on what you're trying to get out of your brew. So you can brew any of the kits on their own, and you'll get a commercial style base beer. So for example, if you brew the lager, you're going to come out with something similar to your mainstream lagers that are on the market. Same with the pale ale and the IPA and the golden ale. But if you're used to drinking your craftier type brews and you like that hop aroma, then really encourage you to go out there and experiment with the hops. Have a look on the cans of any craft beers that you're purchasing and seeing what combinations people are using in those, and it's quite likely that you're going to be able to replicate something within the ballpark of what you're paying a lot more money for at a supermarket or a bottle store for.
Nice, and I guess that's really in line with how we approach extract pit brewing as well. If you use the kit by itself, you're going to get a beer that's perfectly drinkable and perfectly fine, but hops are one of those avenues that allows you to experiment and really create your own kind of signature brews.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. I want to wrap this up with or wrap the conversation up with one kind of final question. Now, earlier on, you talked about cleaning, and if anyone asks what's the number one most important thing to get right, and to make sure if anything you overdo, it's always going to be cleaning and sanitization. So for this question, I just want to exclude that one. But my question would be, what are, say, the next 3 things that you would recommend people focus on or get right in order to either improve the quality of their brew or just get a good product to start with?
I think the next most important thing would be the other thing that goes in the fermenter with the wort, which is water. So you want to have a really good quality water that's going to go into your brew. A lot of town supply waters have got chlorine in them, and that's got the opportunity to add flavors into your beer that you don't want. But something even as simple as a water filter at home can strip out a lot of that stuff. You can go as far as you like in terms of how you want to filter it, but even just a basic water filter at home should be able to do the job for you. If you've got a natural spring somewhere, here at Spates we have a natural spring, which is really good for brewing as well. So yeah, if you can get your hands on that. I think cleaning and water are really your number 1 and 2, and then flavors, like we've already talked about hops, but also if you want to add any additional flavors into it, things like peach IPAs or fruit flavors and things like that, definitely recommend not to go throw some fruit straight from the tree. That could certainly add some micro dimensions that you might not be looking for in terms of wild yeasts and those sorts of things. But there's lots of fruit concentrates and things like that on the market that that you can add to your brews as well if you want to add some fruity flavors and things like that into your beer. But yeah, I think that they're really your key things. Oh, and also brewing temperature. So temperature control, if you can use that, then that's fantastic. So you can do that easily with like an old fridge or something like that, where you put a heat pad and a temperature controller in there, which I think Mangrove Jacks and Inkbird do some really good temperature controlling units that you can use. And they essentially, the heat pad will click on if your brew's too cold, and if it's too warm, the fridge will click on and keep it at the regulated temperature. So the thing with these kits is that we add specialty yeast into them as well, so they don't quite have the same yeast temperature range as what our original kits do, but for the better. So by being able to stay within that temperature range of the yeast, you're gonna make a much better beer in terms of the style that's made for the style that the yeast is made to produce for the beer that you're producing.
Nice. I would say as well, the US-05 is one of my personal go-tos and a really, really nice yeast to use. And the albeit you commented it has a tighter or a slightly different temperature range to your kits, it does have a really nice range that actually gives a lot of flexibility to people who are brewing in ambient temperatures, which I really like about it. But all that said, Brendon, I want to say thanks for just a casual chat and sharing everything you did. We came in to talk about the Brew bags. I think you've given us a lot of great insights into that product, but I think we got a lot more out of the conversation. So cheers.
Awesome. Thanks, Russell.
What I thought I would do to start wrapping this video up is have one more quick look at this kit. Brendon told us that all of these kits include the Safe Ale US-05 yeast. It's a great yeast to brew with and one of my personal favourites that's become a bit of a go-to. One of the reasons that I like it is it's got a great fermentation temperature range to work with. What's published on this specific packet here is an ideal fermentation temperature range of 18 to 26. Now that's a nice temperature range basically for year-round brewing in New Zealand and also for ambient brewing as well as temperature controlled brewing, which is one of the reasons I like it. It's a really, really versatile yeast and quite possibly one of the reasons it's been chosen to go into these brew kits. Speaking of which, let's take a quick look at the kit itself. Here we go guys, it's packaged in a great box, which also means this is going to be an awesome gift item. As usual, comprehensive instructions. There's the yeast we were talking about 2 seconds ago. One thing I'll call out in case you've heard me talking about this before, or in case you were familiar with this yeast, the temperature range published on that specific packet differs very slightly from what I've seen on the past. So I don't know if the packaging has been updated or if the specs of the actual yeast inside have changed, which is quite possible, but always go on the specific packet that you're using. This, of course, is the liquid wort that we're going to be adding to our fermenter. It's time, guys, to wrap this video up. What I really wanted to do today was introduce the brew in the bag, talk about what they are, how they're different from extract brewing, and what the benefits are. I think we covered that off really well. We were lucky enough to meet Brendon from BlackRock Brewing. He shared his insight on the brew in the bag concept, but he also shared a lot about the BlackRock brand, about extract brewing, and about brewing in general. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed it. Hope you guys took something out of it. What I'm going to be doing over the next couple of months is brewing 3 out of those 4 new kits which they've released. So I'm going to brew the IPA, the Pale Ale, and the Golden Ale. And I'm going to drop each one of those as a brew review on their own. Like normal, what I'm going to do is do 2 brews in one video. So I'll do one of those brews as a straight brew to see what we get. And then the second brew, I'm going to hop and see how that comes out. All that said, guys, if you like what we do, give us a thumbs up. Subscribe, keep an eye out for those extra videos. I'm going to say cheers.
Cheers!